It's official, old buddy. And it always has been. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Mainly Movies, the channel where we talk about, well, mainly movies. So yes, I finally got to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now this has been my most anticipated movie of the year, and there is so much to talk about with this movie. Now, this is going to be a very different review because the first half is going to be spoiler free for those in my country who haven't completely seen it yet, because it just came out yesterday in Australia. But for those who have seen it from maybe different countries, you will be getting a spoiler review if you have seen it. And that will be in the second half of the video. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was directed by the writer, director, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Quentin Tarantino, and stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is about an actor, Rick Dalton, and his stunt double, Cliff Booth, who both struggle to find their way in this new age of Hollywood. Rick was a famous Western TV lead in a show called Bounty Law, where he played the character J.K. Hill, and the story follows their fails and their successes.
I love that stuff, you know, the killing.
A lot of killing.
Now, yes, I finally got to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, like I said at the opening of this video, there is a lot to talk about in this movie, and there's a lot to kind of spoil, but I won't get into that just yet. I will put a time code to skip to because I want, you can skip to my final verdicts at the end of the video. Anyway, starting it off, this movie looks amazing. The wide, I'm pretty sure it's 70mm wide camera angle lenses, and the scenes where it shrinks into 35mm. I thought that was really, really cool. The commercials and everything like that. That was amazing to me. Also the recreations of the 50s, 60s TV shows is phenomenal. The way they did that was awesome. Also, the acting in this movie, you can't talk about this movie without mentioning Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and their chemistry in this movie. It was out of this world. They felt like they were friends. They've been friends for years. It was unbelievable to watch these two. There was a very, very good connection, and I just can't believe they haven't worked together before. It was the best part of this movie. But as individual people, their stories are pretty different. It feels like there's 3 different stories throughout this movie. There's Rick Dalton's, Brad Pitt's character Cliff Booth, and Margot Robbie's character, who's playing Sharon Tate, which I will get to later on in the video, more in the spoilers. But to talk about her character without spoiling anything, I feel like Margot Robbie did a great job playing Sharon Tate, and she was very respectful to the memories of the real Sharon Tate, as well as the movie. The movie, there's even some scenes where you see the real Sharon Tate, which I won't talk about until the spoiler. But everyone else was fantastic as well, like Damian Lewis playing Steve McQueen. You have, Al Pacino playing the kind of executive studio head guy. I feel like he was really good. Mike Moe playing Bruce Lee was fantastic. Also, the girls who were at Spawn Ranch towards the end of the film were phenomenal as well. You also have Timothy Olyphant playing the Western hero character. He was really good. Bruce Dern makes an appearance. Everyone did a really good job, and this was just like an ensemble of cast. It almost felt like watching Hollywood. Now, Hollywood in this movie is kind of a character itself, People look at Hollywood, this is a very unique film, because when you think of Hollywood movies, you think of movies of people trying to succeed. But this movie is kind of the opposite. It's about a character who's already succeeded, but his time has just kind of passed. And I feel like this is very unique. And he's trying to pick himself back up again, and he's trying to find his way into major motion pictures. There's one more thing that I haven't mentioned, and that is Quentin Tarantino's directing and writing at the moment. His directing in this film was phenomenal. He went all out with this film. Just the style, the setting, the characters, the clothing, everything. The dialogue itself is all kind of periodic, and I just really appreciate what he did with this movie. This is a fantastic movie. I feel like people need to watch this movie at the moment because it's showing Hollywood. At the moment we have big action heroes such as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and all these starring, in these big budget action Hollywood movies. But this movie's kind of like the 60s version of that, but having those characters or those actors and their time has kind of passed, and I thought that was very, very awesome. And also the dialogue in this movie is wacky, it's quirky, and it's just out of this world, just like all of Quentin Tarantino's other films. Now you're probably wondering why I have Jackie Brown right there, but the reason why I have that movie there is because this movie feels the closest to Jackie Brown, because it's kind of like that, like he likes to call it a hangout film, a movie where you're hanging out with these characters, and that's essentially what it is. It's just hanging out with these characters. There's long scenes where, you know, you see them working, or you see them just driving, or you see them thinking about things, or going to see their own movies, and, you know, it feels like you're hanging out with these characters. It's amazing. Okay, now this is my spoiler kind of area, so right here in this time code right here, click to that part to avoid all the spoilers and go straight to my final verdict. So I'm going to start from the beginning. I just want to go straight into Bruce Lee's sort of scene, just starting it off with Bruce Lee's fight scene. A lot of people didn't really like it because they didn't say they, you know, kind of recreated Bruce Lee very well. I feel like Mike Moore did a fantastic job at playing Bruce Lee. A lot of people say that they kind of portrayed him as more of a dumbass. I don't think they really portrayed him as a dumbass. I just feel like this was Quentin Tarantino's version of Bruce Lee, and I thought it was a very humorous scene, and every time he does the whoa sort of things, you know, it was making me laugh, and just seeing Brad Pitt pick up Bruce Lee and throw him into a car is just fucking hilarious. Now there's a scene later on in the film, about midway of the film, where Margot Robbie goes to see one of her own films, and they play a movie with the real Sharon Tate. Now I don't know whether they just couldn't be bothered recreating the shots of that film. I know I probably wouldn't, but or they were just doing it out of the memory of Sharon Tate, but I actually did enjoy that. I could see a few of the audience members in my theatre didn't actually understand who that was. Also, the scene at Spawn Ranch was very, very intense, and probably like the closest thing that Tarantino will do to like a horror movie that he'll ever do. I have this weird feeling that his 10th movie might be a horror movie, but I kind of doubt it because of his style. It's too kind of comedic in a way. No, but that scene was really good, and Bruce Dern shows up in that scene. He's kind of he plays the owner of Spawn Ranch, and Brad Pitt was like an old friend with him, and he's blind, and they've kind of like raped and tortured him, and it was kind of sick, but in a way it was just funny because he just didn't really care, and he just wanted to sleep, and he didn't mind being taken control by the Manson family essentially. And that scene was very weird, and it ends with just Brad Pitt punching this dude's head in, and it was it was crazy. Now Charles Manson, let's actually talk about Charles Manson, because he's only in one scene in this film. He's kind of portrayed as, you can't even really say he's portrayed in this movie, because all he does is, you know, look into Roman Polanski, or the Polanski resident house. The guy that's living with, I don't know the actual, I think it's based on a real guy as well. The guy that was living with Polanski and, well, I don't know if he was living there, but he was friends with Polanski and Sharon Tate. He comes out and he's saying, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, nothing, man." He just kind of like walks off, and you know, that was all we kind of really got of Charles Manson, but you still get this kind of creepy vibe from him, but it kind of builds that tension as if, you know something's going to happen later on in the film. And I thought that the guy portraying him, I forgot the guy's name, I'll put the name right here, but I feel like he did a great job at portraying the character. Another thing that I want to mention, and this kind of falls into a little bit more of negative, and that's Brad Pitt's backstory. Now there's this kind of backstory that he killed his wife, and you never really know whether he actually did kill his wife or not. And I don't mind not knowing, but I kind of want some relevance. Like I was waiting for it to be relevant later on in the film, but it never became relevant. And I was wondering throughout the whole film and the rest of the film, what were they going to do with that plot? And then with the ending, which I'll get into in a minute, you kind of have this sense of this, I don't know whether it's kind of this anger from it, or, you know, this just this kind of rage mode that he goes into at the end, whether it has something to do with his, wife's murder or if it's just a motive for his character. But, it's it kind of bothered me a little bit, but it didn't really annoy me too much. But in this scene, something did annoy me, the scene I'm about to talk about, which was pretty much the second act of this movie is almost dedicated to Rick Dalton's film, and he's kind of struggling to learn his lines because he's an alcoholic and he smokes a lot, he chain smokes and he's coughing and he's playing this kind of bad guy in this Western film, and we get to see the film, but when it's first introduced they're using the same camera as the regular film that I thought for a second that we were just watching the film, but we weren't. We were watching the film that they were making in the scene. And at first, it kind of really bothered me, but then I kind of got used to it as the scene went on. It didn't really bother me too much. It wasn't really a massive negative, but it kind of did bother me when I first saw it. I did like that scene though, because you get to see him kind of struggle with his lines, and he's having this kind of dispute with the people on set, and I thought that was really funny. And when he's in his trailer and he's throwing shit around, and he's smoking, and then he's like, oh, I'm never gonna drink again, blah blah blah, and then it just does this quick cut, and he's got a flask in his hand, he's drinking it, and he throws it out, and he's just yelling at everyone, he's getting really angry and pissed off. It was a really good scene to watch. It was just that camera that kind of annoyed me. I wish they kind of put maybe a filter over it or something that kind of shows the audience that we're watching a film in a film. But other than that, it didn't really bother me too much. Also, when you see him in other films, it was really good, like the FBI James Bond one that he was in, and also the actual show Bounty Law. When you see those sort of scenes, they're really good. But my favourite joke in particular in the film is when they cut out Steve McQueen's character from The Great Escape and they put his character over it. I thought that was the funniest scene in the movie, and I was laughing out loud. No one else was, except for like the older people in the audience, but I was laughing out loud in that scene. It was terrific. Now lastly, I'm going to be talking about the ending in particular. And my kind of reactions to the ending. Now, this movie kind of leads up to the events, and it shows you like the time of which all these events were happening, and you have Kurt Russell voicing over those scenes, and it's leading you to believe that the movie's going to end with what we know as the tragic Sharon Tate murders by the Manson family. And you see the Manson family, and you have this kind of weird dialogue between them, and it kind of starts with them driving up, and Rick Dalton's having a massive golden while he's drinking this pina colada or some smoothie that he made. It leads you to believe that they're going to this thing, and then they grab their knives. One of them, who's played by Uma Thurman's daughter, Maya Hawke Thurman, or whatever her name is. She's like, oh, I need to grab my knife, and she goes back to the car to grab her knife, and she just kind of drives off, and they're like, well, we're just going to have to run away when it's all done. So they go to a house, and they're like going to go around the back and everything, and this was really cleverly done, how they made it seem as if we were going to witness the murder happen of Sharon Tate, and they kick down the door, and it's just Brad Pitt. And earlier on in that scene, Brad Pitt just smoked this acid joint, and he's having this massive acid trip, and they kind of kick through the door, and they're pointing a gun at him, threatening him, but he's just laughing at the situation because he's so high, and it's just funny. And and then he's talking to Rick Dalton's new wife or new girlfriend, who's played by Eli Roth's wife. And she comes out because he's doing a whole bunch of Italian films and all that, spaghetti westerns. And she comes out, and they've got her, and then it just literally goes from 0 to 100. The dog bites this Tex guy, who was a real guy, by the way, bites him in the balls and in the arm, and then they're shooting around. He like throws the chick on the ground. He grabs this one chick, and he's like smashing her head on everything. And the whole cinema was laughing, and I was laughing. I was kind of regretting laughing because I'm like, this is so violent, but it's hilariously edited and just done. And it's so funny. It's funny. The reason why you're laughing at it is because you're kind of glad that it wasn't going to end in this tragic way, showing the Sharon Tate murders. It ends with just violence by Brad Pitt, like beating their faces in. And then this one comes out and she's shooting up in the air, and then she smashes through the thing and lands in the pool, and Rick Dalton's in the pool, and he's just kind of like having a cigarette or whatever, and then he sees it and he flips out, and he's like, oh shit, and you see him in this kind of shot running off, and it's absolutely hilarious, and this is all happening in a couple of minutes, and then he just goes into his shed and comes out with a flamethrower and just tortures this chick, one of the Manson family members, just tortures her while she's in the pool and she's burnt to a crisp. And it ends with you know, Brad Pitt gets stabbed, but he goes off to hospital, and he doesn't actually die, but he gets stabbed, and he kind of goes off, and you know, Rick Dalton's in the middle of the street, and then he looks over, and it's that guy that's friends with Sharon Tate, and then he invites them in to meet Sharon Tate, and I thought that was a lovely ending, and it kind of ends with that classic like Sergio Leone, Once Upon a Time in America kind of ending sort of thing. And I thought it was a beautiful ending, because it was kind of, obviously it was kind of like rewriting history, but it was just showing a tragic thing happening to bad people, but you know, like the good of the innocent people, and they get to survive, and it was kind of like it was a beautiful ending. And it was an ending that you wish could have happened in real life. I mean, not obviously people burning and stuff, but you know, you kind of wish Sharon Tate and those people stay alive. You know, you didn't want that to happen, and it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a love letter to not only just to 1960s Hollywood, but also, you know, this kind of retelling of a story that you wish kind of happened. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful, and Tarantino did a fantastic job. Okay, so I've basically covered everything. I've got all these notes here of what I'm going to talk about. Got everything covered, so that's all spoilers over. I know if you're just skipping back here, you kind of missed out on my negatives, because all my negatives kind of fall into spoiler territory. But yeah, once you've seen the movie, because I'm going to highly recommend this movie, especially if you're a Tarantino fan. If not, I feel like you're still going to like this movie, because it still feels, it's very humorous and lighthearted, and, well, not lighthearted, but it's less darker than you think it's going to go. I definitely recommend this movie, and that is why I'm going to give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a 9.5 out of 10. It's just those two little minor issues that I kind of have with the movie. Once you see the movie, you can actually see the spoiler discussion about it. But other than that, you know, this was a fantastic movie. I highly recommend watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So yeah, so stay tuned to my channel. I'm going to do in a minute, I'm probably going to review, well, not review, but I'm going to do a weekly pickups, because I haven't done that in ages. And also I'm going to change the name from weekly pickups to just pickups, because, you know, it's kind of hard to do it weekly now when I have so much stuff going on. I wish I could do it weekly, but I can't. I'm also going to do a Pulp Fiction review, because I never got to do all of them. I'm just going to do Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Django Unchained, because they're my kind of favorites. And I'll also kind of talk about the other movies within those kind of reviews. And then I'm also going to be doing my monthly segment again, which is Have You Seen It?, where I talk about an underrated or an underappreciated film. This month's is going to be Shame. So guys, thank you for watching the video. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.